anyway. So, are we live? Yeah, we are. Okay, so today I want to talk about a topic here. Is important topic. I feel it's an important topic. So make sure you watch, until the end, because I'm gonna drop some gems. I'm gonna drop some gems. So I want to talk about. Hopefully, there's no wind. I don't feel any wind, so it should be okay. But I want to talk about why I believe that today's society is the best society to live in modern history. Okay, the best. Yeah, I said it, the best. Okay, and how to take advantage of it. Because a lot of you guys aren't doing that. So, today's society, right? A lot of people they complain about today's society, and don't get me wrong, today's society has a lot of flaws and faults, and I myself have an issue with today's society. But at the same time, I'm not gonna fool myself into thinking that somehow previous generations were so much better. You know, previous generations had a lot of flaws and more flaws. I mean, if you think of something just like survival, previous generations, I mean, I'm not thinking about survival as a mid-20s, young man. Previous generations, it was only 100 years ago that the Spanish flu took out, was it a quarter of Europe's population, or I don't know, took out a lot of people, like 50 million or something like that. And people of all ages died from the Spanish flu. That was only 100 years ago. You got to think about, throughout history, there's been wars. World War One, World War Two. People were forced. I don't have to fight for this country. And you're not really fighting for the country. You're fighting for the New World Order. Let's not fool ourselves into believing that when you go into the military, you're fighting for your country. That's how they try to trick you to join up. You're not fighting for your country, you're fighting for the New World Order. But that's the thing. People were forced back then. People were forced back then to go and fight. And you could have easily died. This is something that in today's society, we have the luxury. I don't have to fight for nobody. I don't have to fight for survival. Hell, in today's society, you don't even have to work. There's plenty of people, some of you guys watching probably sit at home and get disability benefits. Or you just get money from the government. And you're not even really disabled like that. You can work, but you're just too lazy. So today's society, let's be honest, it's a lot easier. If you want to talk about just bare bones survival, I mentioned this before, but that's guaranteed. That's pretty much guaranteed. Bare bones survival. Just being able to survive is pretty much guaranteed in today's society, right? So, you don't have to worry about those things, man. You don't have to worry about, being able to get by, being able to survive. It's easy, It's really, really easy to be able to survive nowadays. You don't have to do anything, okay? So, we can sit here and talk about all the flaws and the faults of today's society, but let's be honest, most of us are working class or lower middle class. We're not high on the echelons of society. We're not. The thing is about today's society, it's a lot easier to move up. It's a lot easier to move up in today's society. Why? Because of the internet. I would have probably never ever been a business owner if not for the internet, because it was hard. You know, you had to first of all have had an idea, okay? Then you had to have a physical location, had to have enough money to rent or buy a physical premises. And then the employees, you had to hire people. You know, it wasn't cheap. It's obviously cheaper than starting up a physical business today, yes. But it wasn't cheap. Today we can leverage the internet. We can leverage big companies like Facebook, for example. Facebook has its own marketing that you can use for your website. Google has its own marketing. You know, you can leverage employees from third world countries and pay them tiny amounts of money. This is something that only you can do in today's society. You couldn't do that in previous generations. So let's not act as if, you know, today's society, you know, some people say, oh, I can't get a job. I couldn't get a job either. That's not an excuse. When I left university, I couldn't get a job. This was in 2016, no, 2015 to 2016. For a year. I couldn't get any jobs. I couldn't get any jobs for a year, guys. So I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be in that position. But you got to think about it. Why do you need a job? Especially in a time like this where, you know, automation is coming in. You know, lockdowns are stopping you from working. Why do you want a job when you go to a physical location? Why do you even want that? It's not beneficial. It's much better for you to start an online business. You know? So let's look at another factor, okay, that people like to talk about. It's the main topic of this manosphere, and I don't like to talk about it much. Women. Okay, women. So, yeah, they want to say it was easier to get women back then. Which is true. It is true that back in the 70s, it depends what way you're looking at, but this video is about modern history. You know, best society in modern history. Yeah, it was easier to get women back then. I'm not going to bullshit and say it wasn't. It was. It was easier. The baby boomers had a far easier time than their kids, the millennials. Absolutely. That's true. It's true that it was easier, but you got to think of it like this. Just because they got women, at that time, everybody did. Everybody did. It wasn't some kind of achievement. You know, it wasn't some kind of achievement. Like some would consider today is an achievement to get married. And we're talking about marriage here because, you know, in today's society, yeah, marriage and long-term relationships, it's pretty much, it's almost dead. I mean, let's be real here. You know, it's practically dead. If we're being brutally and honest about it, it's practically dead today. But you see, a lot of boomers, they got women, right? They got women. They got married. A lot of them are still married today. But that wasn't as fulfilling as you might think. It really wasn't all that fulfilling because we got to understand, if you talk to boomers, I mean, a lot of boomers actually, you know, they would regret not necessarily getting married, but all the time they spent on women because it's a distraction. A lot of boomers never achieved their potential, man. A lot of boomer males, you just go talk to people in their 60s, 70s, 80s. You know, a lot of them, you know, they're going to take it to the grave. They're going to take it to the grave. The fact that they didn't, apply themselves, they didn't, you know, achieve their goals, man. Because getting married isn't a goal. Men don't see that as a goal. Getting married for 20 years, 30 years, having kids, that's not an achievement. Because everybody did it. Yeah, some boomers got divorced. And that's another thing. You know, yeah, a lot of people got divorced as well, but nowhere near as today, as much as today. Today is worse. You know, today's worse, but you got to think of it like this, right? It's not really that fantastic as what these guys are claiming it to be. I've never been married. You guys watching this have never been married, and if you have, you've been married a very short period of time. I'm talking about 20, 30 years. You know, a lot of you guys never grew up with a father. You know, and that's another thing that proves that it didn't work for a lot of people, because a lot of you guys, you're my age, you didn't grow up with a father, or you're a bit older than me. So what does that tell you? That a lot of these people, you know, it didn't really work for them. There's a fox here, bro. This shit is running away from me. Anyway, so a lot of you guys, you know, you didn't grow up with a father, so you don't really know this. But I know what it's like. I've seen what it's like. You know, and my father, you know, is going to take it to the grave that he never achieved his goals in life. And being married for 20, 30, 40 years, having kids, having grandkids, it just doesn't make up for it. You know, it doesn't make up for you not achieving what you, and you can't have it all in life. And that's what I'm saying, you know, very few people have it all. They have a great, you know, they achieve all their goals, they stay married for 40 years, you know, they have grandkids, all that. Very few people have it all in life, and I think a lot of you guys are just looking for it all, you know. You're looking to have a great working life, make a lot of money, beautiful women, marriage, kids, everything. You're looking for the whole package. That's just not realistic. I'm not saying you shouldn't aspire to have those things. I'm not saying that. But you gotta look at things realistically, though. You know, I mean, today's society, you know, you can essentially give up on marriage if you want to. You know, you can say, like, you know, I'm not going to get married anyway because it doesn't work, so therefore I don't have to look at that. You know, because a lot of people back then, they tried marriage and it failed. You know, it failed. And think about it. You spend a lot of time, you spend a lot of money, effort, and what do you get out of it? It fails. In today's society, you can say, well, it doesn't work anyway, so I don't even have to try it. You know, because a lot of you guys, you have this idealistic, you have this romanticism view of, if you were around back in the 60s, 70s, 80s dating scene, you would have got married and you would have had kids and you would have stayed together. How do you know that? You're making an assumption. How do you know you wouldn't have gone to World War I and died? You know, that's part of the reason why it was easier back then, because a lot of men died from World War and also disease. A lot of people died. So, and dangerous jobs as well. I didn't mention that. In the previous generations, you couldn't sit at a computer and make, you know, look how easy it is today. I sit at a computer, you know, just browse a few, you know, and just, it's not that hard, bro. Like, yeah, it's hard work, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not trying to act as if you can just make money by clicking a few buttons, but compared to what they used to do, bro, they used to sweep chimneys, you know, chimney sweeper. They used to sweep chimneys and all the soot, and they would get cancer and they would die. You know, these people would get lung cancer and die. Their job was killing them. You know, I mean, just go look at it. Dangerous jobs in history. Why are you guys romanticizing these generations as if it was all fantastic and you would just get some hot woman and a white picket fence and all this? You're living in a fantasy land. You guys were working class, bro. You guys, maybe the upper class, it was all fine and dandy. I don't know. I wasn't around. But don't think that life was fantastic for a working class or lower middle class male back in the 50s and 60s. You're deluding yourself. You're completely deluding yourself that life was fantastic. You know? You're deluding yourself. You're living in fantasy world. I know that had I been around back then, I would have been at the bottom of society. You know? Back then, starting a business was hard. You had to go door to door and beg for money. I don't know if you had to do that, but some people did that. And they got spat on, they got slapped. You know? It wasn't easy like today. Life today is a lot easier. You know? You think there was no bullying in schools? A lot of you guys who watch this channel, you know, you're lonely, miserable loser guys. You know, do you think you wouldn't have had the internet back then? You know, the internet has allowed people, you know, who get bullied in school, loser guys, you know, with something to do, with something to take their mind off, you know, how it was. Because you got to think about it. You know, if you get bullied in school today, you can just go on your phone, play some games, browse some websites. Back in the old days, you would have to sit in the lunch hall on your own with nothing to do. Nothing to do, there's nothing to do. You know, you would come home, you know, what do? You had no friends. Now, if you had friends, yeah, we can go out and play. Do you think the dorks back then, were just having a great time? No, they weren't. They weren't having a great time, bro. It was a miserable time. The internet has allowed us to, you know, really not only make money but use our time, fill our time. You know, you can complain about, oh, the internet has ruined the dating scene. You know, which I don't take it that far to say the internet has ruined the dating scene. I don't take it that far to say that, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, you know, the internet has its disadvantages. Don't get it wrong. But are you taking advantage of the advantages of the internet? That's the real question. You know, you look in today's society, right? Back then, if you were a nerd, you know, I used to watch like these video game channels. I know a lot of you guys who watch my channel are gamers, probably most of you guys. I used to be a big gamer. I watched like these gamer guys, these older guys. I was listening to one of their live streams back in the days a few years ago, and they're like 40 in their 40s. They said that back in the 90s, if you were a gamer, you would have to hide the fact that you were a gamer back then. You would have got beat up because back then gaming wasn't mainstream. So back then gaming wasn't mainstream. Nowadays everybody's a gamer. Everybody's playing Fortnite. It doesn't matter if you're the most popular kid in school or the most dorkiest kid in school, because nerd culture has gone to the mainstream. Today's society is a lot more accepting. Back then, if you got bullied in school, you know, they wouldn't even care. You know, they wouldn't even care, to be honest with you. You just have to take it. Today's society is a lot more accepting. And you being at the bottom of society, that benefits you. That benefits you. You know, like I said, you don't have to worry about survival anymore. You know, there are some homeless people that worry about survival, but for the most part, survival is guaranteed. You know, we went from a time when nerds were beaten up in school to nerds are worshipped. You know, nerds are icons. Look at PewDiePie, look at all these YouTubers. They are the icons of YouTube. They are the icons of the Generation Z. You know, they are the icons, these nerdy, dorky, lame guys who 30 years ago would have just, you know, got nowhere in life. Look at the contrast. Look at how the times have changed. From being a loser who got bullied in school to fast forward to today, if you're a nerd, you can make millions. They used to have to be able to hide their gaming. Now, if you become a professional gamer, you can make millions. And this is how the opportunities have come. You can now be a professional gamer. I'm not saying it's easy, but these opportunities. You can now start an online business. You know, back then, you know, you would have to create your own business. Like, you couldn't leverage Facebook. You couldn't leverage Google. You couldn't leverage all these different companies, these trillion-dollar companies that you can use them as leverage, which makes it a lot easier. Even in the early days of the internet, you know, you didn't have Facebook ads. You didn't have all these things. You know. So if you're a young guy in today's society, there's a whole host of opportunities, but you're not taking advantage of them. So in my view, you don't really have the right to sit there and just complain, because it's easy to sit there and complain. But again, if you think that lower class, working class, low middle class people had it easy 50, 60, 70 years ago, you're living in fantasy land. Life has never been better for the lower middle class, and working class male. It's never been better. Yes, back in the old days, um, there was more job security. But today, you don't even need a job. It's only because they've tricked you into believing that you can't make money online. You know, some of you guys don't like where you're living. Okay, you don't like where you're living. Well, guess what? In the old days, if you didn't like where you were living, you're stuck. You know, you're stuck. Because even if you went somewhere else, you're going to be strapped for money. How are you going to work? Some people could, but back then it was only really the certain people who could travel, you know, and actually make it. Nowadays, you know, look at digital nomads, look at nomad capitalists, you know. These guys are living it up in other countries. How many of you guys have thought about expatriating, you know? Some of you guys don't even have a passport. You know, some of you guys have not left your city that you were raised in. Why? Why in 2020 have you not left the city or state or county that you were raised in? Why? Why are you still there? You sit there and you make all these videos, or you make all these blog posts about how you don't like where you are, but you're still there. There's no excuses anymore, guys. You're making excuses that aren't even valid. If I want to leave this country today, which I can't because of this bloody fake virus they created, I don't want to get into that this video, but because of that, right, I can't leave. But let's say that wasn't here. I could go anywhere I want. You know, you're free like a bird. We got more freedom today. Now, that's going to be restricted because of this. I don't want to talk about this fake virus, but that's going to be restricted if we don't stand up to it. And let me know if you want me to make more videos on that. I may make more videos on that if you want it. If you want it, you can tell me. If not, then I won't. Unless I feel like it. But yeah, man. You can go anywhere you want. If I want to go to China, I can go to China. I'm not saying I would, but if I want to go to Japan, I can go to Japan. If I want to go to Korea, I can go to. If I want to go to Africa, I can go to Africa. I'm not comfortable with these boxes behind me, bro. Even though they're scared of humans, but yeah, I mean, so you know, you guys complain a lot, but you're not taking advantage of the tools that are available at your disposal. So what are you complaining about? If you just follow what I'm saying on this channel, you're going to start to see. But I didn't have this mindset before. I used to think that today's society was crap, you know. But then I realized I didn't even leave my own, you know, I haven't left it. I didn't leave that area that I was living in since like 2002 or something. Since I was a kid, I came there. I haven't explored the society. I haven't taken advantage of my opportunities. So how can I complain? You know, you got fat slobs like that. One fat slob I talk about lives out there in Colorado, I think, or something like that. I think so. You know, I might be wrong, but I think he lives out there. Or is it Connecticut? I don't know. But he lives out there. The guy's never left the goddamn place. A lot of you guys have never left the goddamn place, but yet you complain. What are you complaining about? Because you don't really know what the world has to offer if you haven't experienced it. That's the thing. You know, this is 2020. This isn't 1920, bro. You know, your health is guaranteed as long as you don't eat all that bullshit. You know, and you can eat a bit unhealthy and still, what do you call it? Survive quite long in today's society. You know, you can. You think all these guys in the 70s and 80s ate so healthy? No, they didn't. You know, they didn't. You know, back then, you know, you could have died of tuberculosis. You know, there was a lot of problems with health. You know, there was no guarantee that you'd make it. There's no guarantees in life, but you know, the chances are a lot higher. So if you want to sit around and waste your life, that's up to you. But I know that, you know, if I want a Ferrari, I can get a Ferrari in today's society. I would have never had a Ferrari, even though they were much cheaper. You know, back in the old days, I would have never had one. Because how would I have even got the information on how to make money? There was no internet. You know? I'm not the type of guy who would have gone to the library and scoured. In fact, you would have to go and find a rich person on the street and go and talk to them. And that's where you get spat on, you get slapped, you get told to F off. You know, because that's what I'm saying. You know, go and listen to Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. You know, Robert Kiyosaki is like 70 something years old, right? Yeah, he got a good wife. You know, that was one advantage of back in those days. You could get a good wife. Nowadays, you know, but that's only one aspect. You look at him, you know, what he did. You know, he managed to get that information because he had a friend that had a father that was an entrepreneur. That was the only way, through knowing somebody and having those connections. Otherwise, you'd be working some shitty job. You know, I mean, it depends what era you're talking about. You know, his era wasn't that bad, but the ones before that, when you were cleaning soot out of chimneys, you know, chimney sweeper, all those jobs. I mean, working on the railroads where you would, you know, there's a good chance of you dying. I mean, I'm talking about like the early 1900s. That was dog shit. If you think that living in the early 1900s was good for, you know, a man, you're living in Disneyland, bro. That was dog shit. If you were living in a what do you call it? I don't even know what I'm saying. That was dog shit. If you were living back in the 1930s, you know, you would have either died of the Spanish flu, you know, or you would have been forced into World War One. That was in World War One was 1920 or ended in 1918, I think. So you could have died in World War One. You could have died of the Spanish flu. You know, it's crazy. I mean, back then was crazy. You know, back then was crazy, bro. Even the Vietnam War. I mean, you know, they forced people to go to the Vietnam War. A lot of people died. A lot of people came back with, what's it called? Is it dementia or something? I know they get post PTSD, but I think they get dementia as well. I mean, you know, imagine being forced to go to Vietnam, bro. You see how crazy that shit was. You know, I mean, we didn't have that in this country. I'm talking, most of you guys are from the USA. You know, so this idea that 2020 and this era is bad, I mean, how is this era bad? I mean, just because your job is going to be replaced by robots, just because you're going to be on UBI, I mean, that's the future. The future is actually going to be not that great if you don't listen to what I'm saying in these videos. Well, that's the thing. If you don't listen to what I'm saying in these videos, you're going to be on UBI. But, you know, this is an opportunity for us to get our revenge on women. A lot of you guys, you know, incel, MGTOW guys, you're so focused on revenge on women. It's coming. What are you doing? You're not doing shit. We know from the evidence that's been put out that the depression that's coming is going to affect women more than men. Women are already suffering. Childcare. Who works in childcare? Women. Almost entirely women. You know, almost entirely women. Who's going to have childcare when you're at home? Nobody has a job, so why do you need childcare? And in any case, they can't afford it. All those women are going to be unemployed. You know, all of them are going to be unemployed. Okay? There's women already, okay? In this pandemic thing, there were guys, landlords, they were telling women, you have to have sex with me, or I'm going to kick you. I'm going to kick you out on the streets during this pandemic. You know, because when you're a man with power, you can exploit women. You can get your revenge on women. You know, you can get your revenge on women because they're going to be desperate. You know, and this is your time to get your revenge. You have to establish yourself now, not just to get your revenge for your own benefit, but the icing on the top of the cake is going to be getting your revenge. You think you can just get your revenge by sitting back and playing Call of Duty? No, you're not getting shit. You know, you guys are so hyper-focused on getting revenge, but yet you don't do anything to get the revenge, though. Why are you not doing anything? Why are you not doing anything to get your revenge? Because you're a doomer. You're a doomer. That's why. You believe in a doom and gloom. There is no doom and gloom. It's winners and losers. In every crisis, there's winners and there's losers. You know, if you're a loser, then it's doom and gloom for you. If you're a winner, then it's great. You know, with crisis comes opportunity. Opportunity that I will take. I will take the opportunity. You know, I will take the opportunity. No questions today, guys. No questions, man. You can ask questions in the next live stream. If I do, this is video format. So, you know, you got to take the opportunity, guys, man. You're running away from the reality and you're delusional thinking, oh, if I was around in the 50s, man, I would have got... How do you know you wouldn't have died in World War I? How do you know? How do you know if you were, let's say you were 19 in the 40s, right? How do you know you wouldn't have died in World War I? How do you know? You don't know that. You know, how do you know you wouldn't have died of some disease or something? You don't know that. You're making assumptions that your life would have been good. And more than likely your life would have been shit because you're working class. You know, I know for a fact I don't want to have lived in any generation apart from today. You know, I don't want to have lived in any generation apart from today. No, I don't, because you got to understand, survival rate was not that high. You know, yeah, the 70s, 80s, and 90s was probably the golden age of dating because women worked. A lot of women worked and they made money, and the man didn't have to bring much to the table. But then again, if you want to get married, marriage is still, I mean, it doesn't, you can try it. It's about money. It's still, marriage has always been about money. It's still about money. I mean, you can try it. You can try it. I don't know if it's going to work, but making money today is definitely a lot easier. It's definitely a lot easier to make money today than it was 50, 60, 70 years ago. And that's because of the internet, and that's because you can leverage trillion-dollar companies. You know, you can use YouTube for marketing. Back then there was no YouTube. You know, you think in marketing, you had to pay for a TV commercial. You know how hard it is to pay for it. Like YouTube is like TV now. A YouTube ad, it costs way less than a TV commercial. You know, that's how those guys, those scammers make so much money, because they just, you know, they put ads on YouTube, which is nothing compared to a TV commercial. You know, back then, you had to, you know, I mean, I don't know if billboards really worked, or, you know, putting adverts on buses and stuff like that, but I don't think you could even do that for a small business. I mean, but yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy how easy it is today compared to back then. That's why you listen to these guys, they're so jealous. Go and watch some of these old guys like Dan Pena and these other guys, man. These guys in the 70s and the 80s, like, you know, they're jealous, man. They say, oh, it's not fair that Zuckerberg could have made the, you know how Zuckerberg made like billions in like 4 years, bro. You know, it took them guys so long to make $1 million, and that guy made billions in like 4 years. You know, you look at that dude Jack Dorsey. I think he made like $1 billion in like 2 years or something like that. He started up Snapchat. Was it Snapchat or Twitter? I think it's Snapchat. Snapchat is Jack Dorsey. Have you seen the chicks that guy is dating, bro? That guy went from some hot blonde Marilyn Monroe blonde to some hot exotic looking Brazilian chick. That guy's getting hot chicks. Oh, he had to pay for it. So what? So what? He's not complaining. He got billions, bro. What are we talking about? You know? So that's the thing, man. You got Instagram, you got all these things you can use to market. You complain, oh, social media has ruined women. Yes, social media has ruined women, but why not use it to your advantage instead of complaining about it? Okay? Use whatever you complain about now, switch it. You complain about Tinder, that's useless. Don't use Tinder to make money. You're not going to make any money. But social media, Instagram, Twitter, all this stuff. You complain about Google, the CIA, all this stuff. Yeah, you're right about it. It's not that you're wrong that Google is CIA. It's not that you're wrong that YouTube is a feminist, pushing the pro-feminist LGBT agenda. You're not wrong about any of that stuff. But you can still use those tools to your advantage. So go and do it. You see on the Real Man here, the truth of man is fair. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you aren't already. And make sure to hit that notification bell so you are informed every time I upload a new video.